I don't know about you, but as much as I enjoy making beautiful jewelry, I also like just making beautiful other things too. And sometimes the bead weaving can just be artwork pieces. So while all of these are considered kind of Christmas tree ornaments, honestly, I leave these out year round because to me, these are just art. Okay, now granted the tree or the candy canes, okay, so then we're getting kind of more true Christmassy kind of feel to them. But these kinds of things, this is just beautiful bead art that I take a lot of enjoyment out of. So, and I really have enjoyed designing these items too. So the one that we're going to talk about today is this one. And this poor little guy is actually not finished. And there's a reason why he's not finished. There's two reasons why he's not finished. But this is what it looks like without having any fringing at all on it. And then over here, I started doing fringing on this, and my intent is to have fringe come down all the way around the entire ornament, so it'll be a very luxurious kind of look. The reason I stopped was because I wasn't loving how this opaque white was kind of creating this solid line of demarcation there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do it using the opaque white seed beads there. But then I'm going to, once I finish with the video, I'm going to rip that part out again, and then I'm probably going to go with a crystal AB. So it's just a little softer. I still want all that drapey effect to it, but just something not quite as hard edged as the opaque white turned out to be. The other thing is that there's other ways that we can fringe these ends with less fringing, but maybe some larger focal bling pieces, and I brought a couple of those to show you. So let's get started working on this, okay? Let's see here, let me put this one, actually I'm going to take it down and show it to you. I'll take it right off the ball. Now this ball is a standard large size ball that I got at one of the big box stores. I can't remember whether it was Michael's or Hobby Lobby or Joann's, but this is the standard larger size of those bulbs. I think it's about a 3-inch diameter. It doesn't even say on the package. I looked and it doesn't even say on the package, but you know, you can kind of eyeball it. There are ways to adjust the sizing a little bit, but this is, I think, a fairly standard size for everywhere. And of course, this just kind of looks like a hot mess when it's not on the bulb. The way we're going to make this is we're going to create this running diagonal peyote piece here first. And if you've done my Russian leaves video, then this is going to be kind of the same technique. It's just that instead of stopping when you just have two pieces here and then attaching at the top, we're going to keep going. And so we're going to just keep changing direction here as we go and create this big long zigzag. We'll join the two ends of the zigzag together, and then we'll add the upper embellishment, and then we'll add the lower embellishment. So that's the plan here. I also want to show you something else. I have two of these, obviously, two of these zigzags, and there were some sizing adjustments that I made, and so I want to point out how you would make these sizing adjustments. When I used this original strip, it was a little tight around the bulb. It fit, but what was happening is I was seeing some distortion. It was kind of doing some wave at the top and the bottom. And so what I ended up doing is reworking the entire thing, and I made two changes. One is, notice how this area is thinner on the original, and I thickened it up a little bit on the second one. I just thought the wider strip would look a little bit better, so I liked that. I will tell you where you make that adjustment when you start. The other thing, and this is a little harder to see, is that this V is one row or one column wider on each side than this column on this V. So it just made it, I just needed about a ½ inch over the entire, in the entire zigzag piece. And so by increasing each one of these V's by 1 as I went along, it gave me that ½ inch over the entire piece. And so I was much happier with the fit when I did that. So those are a couple of different options for you, and I'll talk about that more as we're going along. Okay. So this is how we're going to start out. You are going to start out by picking up one of your size 15s. So I'm using size 15s, and so that's the little accent at the top and the bottom. And then I'm using size 11 delicas. So you're picking up 1 15 and 9 delicas. And then we're going to pick up another 3 15s. So what we're creating here is this little center section. So here's my 1 15, and then our number of delicas, and then here's the 3 15s that we added down here. This section right here, these 9 delicas, this is how I'm going to adjust how wide I want the strip to be. So if I wanted the strip to be like the original, this original skinnier version, instead of 9 delicas there, I would pick up 7. If I wanted it to be even wider than this particular strip, instead of 9, maybe I'd pick up 11 delicas. So this right here is where you make that adjustment. So what we'll do is we'll bring these down so that you've got a little bit of a tail thread left, 4 to 6 inches. And I'm going to go and work this without a stopper bead, but you certainly could add a stopper bead here to make this a little bit easier on yourself. So we're going to pass back up through the first delica past those 3 size 15s. When we do that, that's going to pull those 3 15s into that little picot there. And then we're going to peyote stitch up to the top of this set of beads. So I'm picking up one, skipping one for it to sit next to, passing through the next one. And this is all with the delicas that you're going to be working with here. Like I said, this probably would have been a little bit easier if I'd put a stopper bead on there. I have done this so many times that I'm pretty proficient about keeping the beads from falling off the end, but you can see where it would probably be a little bit easier if I had done it differently. Okay, and so here I am here. So I either picked up the wrong number or I told you the wrong number, because what I should do is add my last bead and be passing through this bead, the 15 at the top. So let me see. I bet you I said the wrong number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, so I actually should have it be 10 delicas. So it should be an even number, not an odd number that you're doing. So what I did is I just pulled that 15 off the top. I'm threading on a delica, threading on the 15. This is how I'm fixing my counting error here. There we go. And so now I can add this last delica. And so I'm skipping the delica next to it for it to sit next to, and then I'm passing through the 15. So it's still a regular peyote stitch, I just am not carrying that it's a 15 that I'm using to anchor it. So there we go. So now we have the correct number here. All right. The first time that you peyote down, you don't do any kind of funky turn at this top end. We're going to do a increase on this end and a decrease on this end, and that's how we're going to get this diagonal action going on. But the first time, you're just going to pick up a delica, and now we're going to just peyote down. That means I'm picking up one, skipping one for it to sit next to. In this case, the one I'm skipping is that 15, and I'm passing through the sticky outie bead. So I'm picking up one, passing through the sticky outie. It is up to you whether you flip this piece as you go along so that you're always stitching in the same direction, or whether you stitch up and down and reverse direction yourself and keep the piece in one orientation. I tend to flip it. Right this second I didn't, so I'm stitching down. My normal rhythm is to stitch upwards. So here I'm going to do my first decrease on this end. What I don't want to do is I don't want to stitch another stitch into one of my accent beads here, one of my 15s. I want to stop before I hit the 15. And that's one of the benefits of having this accent bead along the edge, is that's a visual reminder of where you stop. You do not want to stitch into it. You want to stop one short of that. Now I'm going to turn around and go back up, but for my first stitch going back up, I'm going to pick up that accent bead, which is that 15. This gets a little bit easier as you get a little more to hold on to. Like anything with bead weaving, that starting part where you're kind of fumbling is the hardest. Okay, so on this top edge, we're always going to stitch all the way to the top. We know that because it's a main color delica, it's not a 15. Now we're going to do our first funky turn on the top edge. So this is going to be our first increase. I'm going to flip it because I like to do this closer to me. I can just hold the tension a little bit better. So when you do the funky turn with the increase, you're going to pick up a delica, a 15, and a delica. You're going to pull those down so that they're sitting right next to the beadwork. And then I kind of pinch it a little bit with my finger, and I kind of try to pinch that first delica that I picked up out a little bit, because what I want to do is just pass through that first delica that I picked up. What's going to happen is the other two beads that you picked up should flip so that they're sitting side by side here. And then this is the one that I went through, but you're going to notice, oop, I accidentally passed through one of the beads in the beadwork, but here we go. This is what it really should look like. So my thread's coming out of this bead. It's really loosey-goosey because there's only one thread attaching that to your beadwork, which is totally what should be happening. So it won't feel real secure until you stitch the next peyote stitch in. But look how you now increased how many peyote stitches you have on this edge. So you'll now work your way all the way up this edge. Remember that your last stitch is going to be right before, like if I took one more stitch, I would be stitching into that 15. Don't want to do that. So instead I'm going to flip it, turn around. I'm going to pick up a 15 for my first stitch going back up. And now I'll go all the way to the top again. And I will do the funky turn with you one more time here, because I want us, there's a couple other little tips I want to give you about that funky turn at the top. I tend to make it look easy because I've been doing this for about 1,000,000,000,000 years. But it is very common, and let me kind of purposely do this. So here I am, I'm at where I want to do the increase. At the beginning, for this very first wedge that you're creating, it's going to be, the increase is going to be where your tail thread is. So that might help you orient. So I'm picking up my delica, my 15, and my delica. I bring them down so they're sitting next to the beadwork. But let's say you can't really get back through this first delica if it's sitting right up at the beadwork. It's a lot more comfortable for you to do it if it's way back here. But when you do that, look what happens. Now you've got all this thread showing here. There's a really simple way to make that go away, and that is hold on to these top two beads, the two that kind of flipped over on each other, and then tighten your thread. You have to kind of maneuver it a little bit, but there we go. So by holding on to these two and tightening, then it sucks up all that extra thread, and there you are with it nice and tight next to your beadwork. The other thing that I want to mention to you is frequently this will try to twist on you, and so that accent bead, that 15, will try to be on the outside edge instead of on this inside where we want to create the row of it. I don't really worry about it right now. I don't fuss with it too much, because what's going to happen is once we have gone down, turned around, come back up this way, we can force it to sit the way we want to by stitching through the delica, and then it will sit tight and it won't swivel like that on you. So don't spend a lot of time stressing trying to make it sit the way you want it to, because you're just going to force it when you get back up there by stitching into it. So you're just going to keep doing this. Increase on one side, decrease on the other. Keep stitching until you have, let me show you here. You're going to want, okay, so we're going to pretend that this part is not here and that this part is not here. So what you want is, come here, Mr. Needle, I need you to be a pointer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the size 15 sticky outies on your top edge, and then you're going to have the little picot down here plus 1. So let's see, we're going to count the picot as 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these on this edge, and then you're going to be in position to do your reverse of direction. So that's where I want you to get to that point, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how you're going to reverse direction. Hopefully by now you're starting to get into the rhythm of this a little bit. Now I'm going to throw a wrench in the works and we're going to reverse directions, but it's really not that hard. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So here is where I've got this piece where I have got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the top. If I include the picot, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the bottom. And that's because when I did it, I added my eighth up here on the top with my funky turn. I came back down, I did my decrease, and I've come back up. And so now I'm basically positioned where I normally would then add my 9th funky turn on this top. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to pick up a delica and 3 of the 15s. So we're still doing a funky turn, it's just a different funky turn. And you're going to pass back through the delica that you picked up. So it's going to be kind of similar to that funky turn. And then when you tighten, then you just created a new picot down here at the bottom. And you'll go ahead and you will stitch the rest of the row, just like normal. I'm using that skinnier sample, so you're going to actually have more peyote stitches between the top and the bottom than I do right here, so don't let that freak you out. And then this is where normally I would turn around, right, because I don't want to go through that white 15, but in this particular case, because I'm reversing directions, I do want to go through that 15. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way through there. Okay, so now this, where I'm coming out of that 15, is going to be my top edge, and this, where the picot is going to be my bottom edge. To make the two sides match, let me show you here. This is that center 15, and here's the picot that's directly opposite it. Notice that the funky turn doesn't happen until one stitch past where this 15 is. So there's a delica on one side and there's a delica on the other side. Here we're coming out of that 15. We've got the delica on this side, but now we need the delica on this other side. All of that means that the very first time that you come out on that top edge after reversing direction, you do not do the funky turn. So that just means that I'm just going to simply peyote stitch like normal, like so. So there, now I've got the delica on either side without all the extra stuff. And here I am at the bottom. I know that's my bottom because the picot is there. I am not going to stitch into that 15. Instead, I'm going to flip or just, reverse which direction I'm stitching. Oops, and remember for that first stitch on that bottom edge, I'm picking up a 15, coming back up. Going all the way to the top. And now I'm going to do my funky turn like I normally would have done. So here's where I'm picking up my delica, my 15, and my delica. Bring them down, pass back through that first delica, like so, tighten it all up, and then stitch back down again. So then at that point everything's normal again until you have your next set where you've got 8 across the top edge, 9 across the bottom edge. Then you're going to do another funky turn. And you're going to keep going on this until you're going to have, and so this one is actually not fully there. Let's see here, it's easiest for me to see it this way. You're going to keep going until you have 7 completed peaks on one side and 6 peaks on the other. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You would have a 7th here, and then you would have 6 down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all I have to do to finish this one off is get up to this top edge, and then we'll be ready to join the 2 ends together. Now, let me tell you that in the instructions, there is a picture that is exactly how many peaks and valleys it is. And so you can actually take your piece and match it against the picture in the PDF instructions, so you can make sure that your peaks and valleys, you've got it exactly right to do the join. I just find it easier that way, so I went ahead and put that picture in, and you can just match it right up and know for sure that you're in the right spot to do the join. So work along on your little zigzag piece, and when you get your peaks and valleys all to the right count, come on back and we'll put those 2 pieces together. So this is going to be a little quick segment, but it's a very important segment because it's how we're going to take those 2 ends of your zigzag and join them together. And there's just one little trick to it that once you see it, you're going to be like, okay, totally got it. But if you don't see it, it can be a little hard to follow. So let's take a look at the beads here. This, because I'm working on that skinnier version of this. It doesn't have as many peaks and valleys as you do, but like I said in the previous segment, you're going to have your 7 finished peaks on one side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have a 7th here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'd have a 6th down here. So I'm basically 1 V short of what yours is going to look like. And what I've done here is you're going to notice that on this last peak, I did not add the picot right here. And so when I got to my 9 and came back up, I'm sorry, my 8. Let's see here. I'm getting my numbers confused. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. So the 8th one would be right here. And so instead of finishing that off, what I'm going to do here is just come out that top bead, because look over here on this side. There's the picot. That's the picot that's going to be on the top of this this turnaround right here. So this is how we're going to do this. We're going to fold this in. It's easiest just to kind of fold it in on itself, and I'll kind of put it so that there's board underneath it so you can kind of see what's going on here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a delica and a 15. And I kind of bring those down. I leave it kind of a little bit loose because here's what we're going to do. You're going to pass through the first sticky outy delica on this opposite side here. So that's the first stitch. And then you're going to come back, and in this direction from top to bottom, you're going to pass through that first delica that you picked up over there. So it's just kind of an awkward stitch that you have to take here. So it's catching the first sticky outy on the opposite side and then passing back through. See how it came out, picked up the delica, the 15, passed through the sticky outy over here, then came back in the opposite direction through this delica here, and then as I tighten all this up, it is going to magically, look now how this is all going to zip together. So now I'm just going to zigzag and do a zip up and go back and forth to create this join. So it is this, And then I'm going to pick up the sticky outie on this side. And then I'm going to pick up the sticky outie on this side. And sticky outie on this side. So it's really super easy once you kind of see how to create that join. And then the last thing that I want to show you here is, your last stitch will be coming through that 15 there in the center. Notice how there's no connection between the 15 and the delica right next to it. So as a last stitch here, go ahead and stitch into that delica right next to it, so that now that is connected on both sides. So you are good to go at that point, and you have an entire joined piece. And then you're going to want to maneuver your thread, just work your way so that it's coming out a tip picot of one of the picots here. So it doesn't matter which one, just work your thread through your beads so it's coming out of the tip of one of those picots. And then we're going to come back and we're going to start actually creating the cage on top that will put it on top of the ball. You got your join done? You all happy with your join? I bet you are. Now let's talk about how we're going to create the top that's going to sit on top of your ornament. And let's come down into the beads here. I've already created this little top ring. So I decided I've created this several different ways. One where I tried to do this all with one thread and do it at the same time, and a second time where I created the ring for the top first and then joined into the ring, and this way was much easier. So because you're going to have 7 peaks at the top here, I needed a multiple of 7 for the top of this ring. So this is actually 21 fire polish, and then I put a size 15 in between each one of the fire polish. So all I did was joined them into a ring, and then I ended off the threads, and I actually did tie a couple of half-hitch knots as I went along to end off the threads in this ring. And you want to make sure that it's going to go over the top of your ornament. This particular one has a fairly wide top. Some of them have smaller tops. If you have a smaller top, you can actually make this ring a little bit smaller by, actually it'd be a third smaller, by using 14 instead of 21, and then there would only be a single fire polish in between each one of your joins. That's an option for you. This, because it is a little bit big, it doesn't fit super tight along this top. It can, move a little bit like this. One of the things you can do is, well, first of all, after you've put all of your embellishment on it, it weighs it down a little bit, and so it doesn't move around quite as much. So just so you know, like so. You can kind of position it, and it doesn't move quite as much. But you can also get that stuff called museum putty or whatever. It's just a little bit of clear, sticky stuff that you can actually put a little dab in on the top here and kind of push your fire polish into it, and that way it won't do any sliding around. So it just depends on whether it bothers you, that this moves around a little bit on you or not. I like to have it a little on the big side simply because then it is more flexible with you being able to use with different ornaments. So it's just up to you whether you want to try to cinch that down or not. Okay, actually I'm going to leave that ball on here because what I want to show you is how this all comes together. It does not matter whether you start out in the ring around the top or whether you start out from the picot at the bottom here. But basically what we're doing is we're just joining these together. And actually I'll do this first one, join, and then I'll walk you through it on what it looks like on the finished sample. So I told you to work your thread so it's coming out one of these tips on the picot, which is exactly what we've got going on here. You're going to pick up a 15 and a fire polish. This is a 3mm fire polish. And then here you're going to notice that I added in a delica in between on either side of that center fire polish just to bring that color back in again. So what I did is a 15, a delica, and a 15. and then the middle fire polish, and then a 15, a delica, and a 15, and your last fire polish, and then a 15 for right before you go into one of the fire polish on these rings. And for your first one, it just totally doesn't matter which fire polish you pick. So we're just going to pick one. Now we're going to come back and create the second side of this. So here we're going to use that. Basically, this is kind of a little bit of a netting technique. We're going to use this center fire polish on both sides. So that means all we have to pick up here is the 15 top fire polish, a 15, a delica, and a 15, and then we're going to pass back through that center fire polish. There you go. And then we'll create this second side here. So it's a 15, delica, 15, pick up a fire polish, and then one last 15. When you came out of the tip of the picot, you came out on one side, we're going to go back in on the opposite side. And there we go. So that's that, just a little tiny bit of netting right there to make that prettier. Then so after I created that first one, what I did is I worked my way back up. I kind of reinforced this, worked my way back up to the top here. So that I was coming out of the fire polish in that top ring. Okay. Then to get in position to do the next connection, I want to move forward. There's going to be two fire polish between them, the connections. So I'm going to pass through a 15, a fire polish, a 15, a fire polish, a 15, and then I'm going to pass through that third fire polish. And this third fire polish here that I'm passing through up here is going to be the one that we're attaching the next unit to. And the reason you want to come past it, go past it and come back, is just so that the thread path works out properly. And so here we are, we're ready to pick up a 15, a fire polish, and then the 15, delica, 15, and our center fire polish, 15, delica, 15, and the last fire polish, and then one last 15. Okay. We're coming out the far side of that fire polish in the ring, and so we want to come back, because basically we're creating a circle, right? So we want to come on that side of the 15 here in the picot. So we're on the far side, we're coming in the far side. Now we're coming in on the near side closest to us, and we'll go back in on the near side closest to us on the fire polish up at the top. So it's a circle that you're creating. So here we're just going to remember how we're netting. So we're going to use that center fire polish. That means we're picking up a 15 as they fly around my board, a fire polish, a 15, delica, and 15. And then we're passing through the fire polish in the center. I don't really worry too terribly much about holding the tension on this until I get all the beads in place, because it tries to loosen up on you a lot, and that's normal. So I just let it play its little games and ignore it until I really want it to do what I want it to do. Okay, so here's the last bit. So this is the fire polish. Remember, there's two empties. This is the one I'm attaching into. I came out on this side, which means I'm going to go in on this side to attach. And then I'm going to move forward by 3 fire polish in that ring to get myself in position to add the next connection. Let me show you something. Sometimes, now I got lucky with both of these, and these X's are sitting really nicely together. Occasionally you'll get one where your threads cross over oddly inside that center fire polish, and they'll kind of sit weird, they're not sitting nice and flat. If that happens to you, you can actually, before you move forward here, go ahead and reinforce this join, this connection. And when you reinforce it, do it as a crisscross. So let's say that these were sitting funky. What I would do is when I went to add this last piece here, I'd pass through the fire polish, and then I'd go down this side of the X, go through the middle, and then go down the opposite side of the X, come around, and then do the opposite. So it's that figure 8 motion. And that will then straighten everything up for you and make it sit the way you want it to. So that's a troubleshooting item for you. So you'll just go around and add all those joins around the top, and that's what you end up with. And really, it is gorgeous just like that without any further embellishment. But, of course, I love to add more, you know me. So what I've done here is I started doing, first of all, I switched everything that I did on this top edge, I used Fireline for. Anytime I'm doing fringe, I've discovered that it is much softer and drapier, and I'm happier with the drape if I use thread. So this actually, I switched to thread once I started working on these fringes. And what I was doing here is I'm simply working my thread so that it's coming out each one of these accent 15s as I go along. And I'm adding a unit of fringe to each one of those. On this one, this is actually 50 size 15s long. And then I picked up one of those 3mm fire polish, 3 more 15s to create a little picot on the tip to go back in, and then just came all the way back up and moved to the next 15, the next little sticky outy 15. On the tip here where the picot was, for this one, what I did was I actually centered it off the tip picot. And what I think I would actually rather do in the future is I'm going to actually create a fringe off each one of the side beads in that picot. So there'll be 2 fringes coming off of here instead of the single that is centered. I think it's going to look better if there's something coming out of each one of those sides. I think I'll be happier with it. But this is obviously not the only way that you can do fringe. And so I wanted to point out to you that if you don't want it to be quite this elaborate with this much fringe going on, you could even add just a single fringe or single accent to come off, say, the bottom of each one of these petals, or maybe one off the bottom and one off the middle here of this center. And you can do things like create a nice crystal line. This would be gorgeous with this particular color scheme. These are some size 6mm bicones, Swarovski bicones. I could just dangle those off the bottom, you know, create a single line of fringe with a dangle off the bottom. I found these in my stash. I have some little Swarovski star beads. That would be gorgeous hanging off the bottom of these. So, you know, there are lots of ways that you can fringe this and embellish this on the bottom. And so I'm kind of give you the basic here with this little line of fringe, but I encourage you to play with it because this is some place that you can really add a lot of your own personality in the beads and choices that you make down here in the bottom. And you have all these little sticky outies as potential spots for you to add those embellishments. So you see, while I give you the bones, I really want you to go off and create your own variation of it so that it's really special and unique to you. I really hope you enjoy making this. I have had a lot of fun making this particular one. I know it's going to find a special spot on my desk at my office at work, and so that I'll enjoy it year-round. I hope you enjoy it too. Happy holidays.